Kielbaso. This is Matt Cady. We've been wanting to do this for a while. I know that I had talked to Paul and Scobie and maybe Barry. Did we talk about this?
Maybe.
We've been talking about doing something like some sort of series like this for a long time, and the idea was to start off with the youngest age groups. But I know some of you guys are coaching older kids too. So what age group do you guys coach? I'd ask you first. What's
5 years old to 12 years old.
5 to 12. All right, perfect.
I think the youngest, like 2012s.
I don't know what that is.
Six or
Six. That's a lot of math for me.
Don't
Alex.
make it. Sorry.
Okay, so
What I'm used to.
you have mainly 6-year-olds?
6 and 9-year-olds, yeah.
6 to 9.
Yeah.
You are coaching soccer, right?
I think I do.
Okay. Make
It's
sure.
not-
You're outside and
6
just
and
walked in.
6 and 8.
Yeah.
Awesome.
8-year-olds.
Like 5 to 12.
Cool.
8 to 16.
U12 and under. I coach U8 to U19. Actually, U23 with
Because
college.
you've got college. But you have some younger age groups.
I
too.
do have a younger age group,
All
yeah.
right, perfect.
6 to 13.
So you have younger age groups too? I know you have a
Yeah.
ton of young,
U13 and below.
everything.
8, 9s, and 16s.
6 to 15.
Gosh.
8 to 15.
All right, awesome. So everybody here is coaching at least some younger kids, but I like that you guys have the older kids kind of look also. So we'll try to keep this as informal as possible, but I'd like you to leave here today at least having like a couple of ideas and that you could say, oh, we'll put that in, or at least I kind of understand where things are going to fit in the larger context of athlete development. Have you guys heard the concept long-term athlete development at least a little bit? Has everybody, or is that kind of a somewhat new concept to some of you? So the term long-term athlete development is like a huge concept. LTAD is what you'll hear it referred to as with a lot of the national governing organizations. Pretty much across the board now, all the NGOs are coming up with their own LTAD model based off of what kind of started in Canada from a Russian guy who had looked at all the research, and now there's books about LTAD and all sorts of models about it. But the problem with a lot of the models is they've taken the research and then they talk about what should be done, but they don't really talk about how to do it. So hopefully we'll be able to talk a little bit more about how you're going to implement some of this stuff. So right off the bat, I've got some science listed here for you. I don't expect you to go through any of the research, but you certainly could if you wanted to. I like that Barry's holding that up to the camera. That's
Thanks,
very
mate.
slick, Barry. The main idea is, if you look at this pyramid here at the bottom, or at the very top, it's got the movement skills, and then the speed, power, and then up at the top is your sports skills. That is kind of the international and research-based accepted model for how you would want to develop an athlete. You would start off by developing an athlete, and eventually they would turn into a soccer player or a tennis player or a football player or whatever it is. Unfortunately, we all know that that model is pretty much flipped upside down. You guys are now seeing kids as young as 5 and 6 years old who are not playing any other sport, and they are enrolled in soccer pretty much year-round, and that's what they're getting. The other problem that you're seeing is that physical education is for most kids, they're getting 50 minutes once a week, and that's about it. I think, did you say you have 2 twice a week though sometimes?
We have once a week usually.
Once a week?
Yeah.
Are you a phys ed teacher too?
No, but I
You teach, so you see it. Yeah, you get that one special, that's all they pretty much get. It used to be that they would have more, and while there are some amazing phys ed teachers out there, I mean, you have them once a week, so really what are you going to do? So you guys have essentially become not only sport coaches, but also parents and also phys ed teachers and athlete development coaches, or whatever you guys want to call it. I get it, though, that your main goal is people are paying you to teach the kids soccer. And you probably feel a lot of pressure to make sure the kids get good at soccer, and your background is probably not in athlete development and coordination and all that kind of stuff for the most part. So how do you balance all that? Does that sometimes become a problem for you? Are you guys seeing kids who are not very fast, not very athletic?
Balance usually, in my opinion.
Balance is really
towards
poor.
anything. And actually, that was gonna lead into a question I had, because for the younger ages, obviously you have gymnastics, but what do you do with, and you can segue this eventually, but for a kid who's up in the older ages, 12 and above, to improve their balance,
Yeah.
or more skills that they clearly did not get at a younger age?
So we are gonna talk about those three questions. You're not, he's cut off now, okay?
Damn,
No.
I also had another one too.
So that's a huge problem. So the idea that I would love to see, and I know that Paul and Scobie and everyone I've talked to about this totally agrees, they're just not sure like how to make this happen, is that if you guys working with the youngest age groups were spending a little time on, let's say, we start at 5 and 6 years old, spend a little time on athlete development, and then the 7-year-olds did a little, and the 8-year-olds did a little, and the 9, and the 10, 11, 12. By the time they're 14, 15, 16, theoretically, you should have faster, stronger, more coordinated, better balancing, better overall athletes. And at the same time, they're developing their soccer skills. In theory, 6, 7 years from now, you would have better athletes to draw from, and they would have a higher ceiling athletically. Does that kind of make sense for you? The problem is, once you get to a certain age, like what you're talking about, if they haven't gotten that when they were younger, now you can try to catch up, but because they haven't developed that coordination early on, it affects how they learn every other skill and how they do everything else out on the field. So they kind of missed a lot of it, and it's very, very difficult to catch them up at that point. Even if they have great skills, it's very difficult to catch them up athletically at that point, because anybody who has developed the athleticism early will be able to develop the skills at that point much faster, because they have a higher neural capacity, or basically their ability to learn new skills. I'm sure you've seen some of these kids, that they can pick up anything, and then other kids, they just don't get anything. So once they have that motor learning capacity, by developing coordination at a young age, it's a lot easier and to develop it, and now you're going to see kids that will pass them. I would rather, and I'm sure a lot of upper level coaches would probably rather have just a raw athlete come into their program at 13 or 14, and now they can develop them, than have non-athletes with really, with good technical skills, but they get passed up later on. So a lot of the research that's been done, I don't really want to go through it too much, but some of the research, this Gullitch 2017, this is a pretty new study, and they did a huge survey with hundreds of medalists and non-medalists across a wide variety of sports. And really interesting information that they found was that the international medalists, so the people that were at the very top, actually started training for their main sport, whatever that is, later than the non-medalists. But they were training in something else and doing other things. So it's not like they were sitting on the couch when they were kids. They were training, but they didn't start focus training until after the other kids. There's also a ton, so this Mostafavafar, and I think I'm pronouncing it right, the last one, the last study on there kind of got the results that are in those boxes. So you've got the ESS stands for Early Sports Specialization, and the LTAD is Long-Term Athlete Development. And what I think is super interesting is for the early sports specialization kids, you're going to get quick performance boosts. So there's no question, Matt and I were just talking about this right beforehand, there's no question in my mind that if you took your kids at a young age and they practice soccer all the time, their sports skills, are they going to get better at it? Yes, of course they are. They're practicing it. Their bodies are going to adapt to it. Their nervous systems are going to adapt. They're going to get better at it. But the kids who only play one sport early on, all this research is showing that their best performances are at about 15 to 16 years old. And then they kind of peak, and then they don't get that much better after that. Whereas the kids who develop a wider base earlier on don't have their best performances until past 18, and now they're developing into much better all-around athletes down the road.
Is there a reasoning for that?
Because, the reasoning is because they're developing this wide neural base, this bigger neural capacity. They're better athletes, but not necessarily better soccer players at an early age. And I know just from playing and coaching for a long time, playing lots of sports, the kids, I know that you guys see it, kids who, when they're 13, 14, 15 years old, if you put a really fast athletic kid out on the field, like, I don't care what kind of skills they have, they're gonna make an impact on the game. Would you guys kind of agree with that? And now if you take a kid who's really fast and has some skills, like, now you're talking, like, now you're gonna have somebody that can do a lot of things. And when I say fast, I don't mean just straight line fast, I mean, a really good athlete. And they're gonna be able to catch up, those skills are gonna be able to catch up a little bit, assuming they have some skills. I am by no means saying that you should just have kids not play soccer until they're 13 or 14, like, that's not what I'm trying to say in any way, shape, or form. They have to practice their skills. The idea is that they should be getting some of these other things somewhere else. So if you flip over to page 2, I kind of created this little model for us, if you will. So if you kind of go along these this blue arrow thing, from 2 to 5, this is their early development. You guys don't really have much to do with this. This is going to be mainly parents and what kind of school or stuff that they're seeing. But that early development is actually super critical for long-term athlete development, because if they're not getting that stuff, that's really laying the foundation for how they learn. And the way kids learn all the way through is they'll see something, they'll want to do it, and they'll figure out how to move to make it happen. And as their bodies move to make something happen, whether it's kicking a ball or going to grab something, they figure out what works, what doesn't work. Their nervous system starts to fire in different ways so that it's saying, yeah, this is working, this is not working. But once it does work, now they have a memory, essentially, and they can then use that memory to create a new movement. So if they're able to, just barely kick a ball, they at least now have the memory of, oh, I was able to kick that ball. It didn't go very far, but they at least have that memory. Now they can start to learn, oh, I want to kick it farther, oh, I have to wind up. And then somebody shows them, oh, if you turn your foot to the side, it's going to change, the angles and all that. But if they don't ever learn, if they don't ever get that little stuff early on, they don't have those memories or past experiences to build on, you really can't do anything about that. But you're seeing kids as young as 5 and 6, that's where they start to need that stuff more than ever, like the fundamental motor skills. Once they get to the 6 to 10, theoretically, that would be like where they're learning physical literacy. They're learning how to move their bodies through space, spatial awareness, coordination, all these things that are listed on here later. And they're getting introduction to sport. That's pretty much where you guys are for a lot of you, that 6 to 10 age range. And then 11 to 13 is where you get more of an athletic formation. They're learning more about competition and how the sport's going to work. But at about 13 to 14 years old, that's where like the huge dropout rates in most sports occur. And the dropout rates of travel soccer at 14 are like astronomically high. I'm sure you guys have seen that quite a bit. But it's not just soccer, it's every sport pretty much across the board. So don't think it's just you guys. It's pretty much all sports, because that's where kids start to decide, do I want to do that, or am I just going to be am I just going to be a normal person and not an athlete? But this model, like the goal for, at least for me, would be to get them into general fitness. If they have a strong foundation of movement and sport, there's a better chance that they're going to be fit later on. And you guys don't have to worry about like how the model goes down the road, but in the grand scheme of things, what we're trying to do is create healthy adults. Like, so you've got 2 tracks, either high performance or at least a healthy adult. You guys are probably thinking more about high performance, but how many, like, realistically, how many kids are going to be like high performance kids? And I'm talking about, like you're going to have a bunch of college players, but how many are going to go past that? Not that many. So you're hoping that you've at least instilled some stuff in them that's going to want them to, this is going to help them create healthy habits down the road as well. That kind of makes sense to you guys? May not be your main goal right now, creating healthy habits, but I hope you guys understand what a huge influence you have over these kids, because for a lot of them, you are their earliest exposure to sports and to movement and to all this stuff. And think back to who your coaches were when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. Like, those are probably some very important people in your lives, and you may not remember it, but at the time they were teaching you things kind of for the first time. You guys have those memories? I mean, I know I do. Like, the guy that taught me soccer and basketball, like, as a kid, like, is like one of the, like, he's a really important person. Do you guys have those people? Or were they terrible? Were they terrible?
No.
No? Well, what's sad is that most kids' first experience in sports is with their least qualified coach of their lives. Because most of the time it's with a volunteer coach. Most of the time. And most volunteer coaches aren't very good, and they get turned off to sports and they have a bad taste in their mouths. And then, you know, if they get into a bad situation, that's why, that leads to a lot of the burnout. So it's way more than just about getting good at soccer. There's a lot of influence to it. Okay, so are you guys following me so far? Yeah? All right, did you have any question? Did you want to ask another question?
Well, I have several, but in the sake of time,
Okay, so let's move into this 6 to 10-year-old thing right underneath the arrow. All the research on kids under 10 shows that strength and actual size, the size of the kid, are the two biggest predictors of athletic success. So your biggest and strongest kids are going to be your best athletes at a young age. Not always, but those are the two biggest predictors. And strong is a strong relative to their body size. So a small kid can be also very strong, and that strength is going to allow that kid to run faster, change directions quicker, do everything faster. So do you see any of that in your younger age groups? The bigger, faster, stronger kids are usually the best ones. So knowing that those are your biggest predictors, we can't change the size of kids, at least not in a healthy way. But we can change their strength levels, and especially relative to their body size, without doing stupid stuff, you know, like having them do strength training when they're 6 years old. That's not really appropriate. But by doing some of the things that I'm going to show you, you know, you will be able to impact that. To me, it just makes sense. If we know that the stronger kids have better success, more success breeds more confidence, and the more confidence they have, the better they're going to get at their skills. So it's like this cycle. So by getting them stronger a little bit, like, that will actually, in the long run, help them be better soccer players. You guys want to kind of run through all these things, or, you know, to tell me if you have questions about everything in this 6 to 10? There's a ton on there, I know, and I want to get outside and actually do some stuff.
With the FMS, you're talking about like
Fundamental motor skills.
Yeah,
sorry.
I get that, but you're talking about run, jump, throw, catch. The basic 4, right?
If you look on page 3, it's listed, all your fundamental motor skills. So your fundamental motor skills are, it's run, skip, catch, throw, jump, leap, shuffle, gallop, kick, punt, bounce or dribble, dodge, twist, roll, strike with a hand, or strike with an implement. There's a lot of stuff that kids should be able to do by about 9 years old with pretty much, with a lot of fluidity. I'm guessing, I know from coaching my son's team and their U11, that there are kids who can't do 4 or 5 of these things with any fluidity whatsoever. There you go.
I got 2 20-year-olds that come probably
Yeah,
on my college team.
at least not with fluidity.
I don't
you know
think
what I mean?
AD can recruit these things right here.
You don't think he can?
No, AD.
Oh, AD can't? There's a couple on there that you're pretty sure he can't do.
I want to see you gallop.
These are, if all you do is start to implement some of these things into a warm-up routine, that is going to help overall athleticism. And pretty much the bottom line to what I want to talk to you about today is I wanted you to kind of get the idea that that each age group can kind of build on the next one. So you're thinking of this a little bit more long-term, because I think you have to do this as a team. And I don't mean like a a soccer team, I mean like a coaching team. Because if Alex is over here with U6 or U7s and he's doing this stuff, but he knows that U8, 9, 10, and 11, you guys aren't doing this, then that's going to be frustrating. Because you're going to be thinking like, look, they're starting to get better at this, but they need more of this. They're not getting it anywhere else, they need more. So if they get like a year or two gap in this stuff, everybody's gonna kind of get frustrated. If each one of you for each age group spent your first 10 minutes while you're doing warm-ups, implementing a little bit of this stuff, over the course of 6 years, that adds up to like hours and hours and hours of motor development that really could have a huge impact. And the stuff that you're going to implement is not going to be rocket science, and it's not going to be stuff that is taking away a ton of your time from practice. It's stuff that you can implement with a ball a lot of times, and just throw into what you're doing. Right now, what do you guys typically do your first 10 minutes?
Dynamic warm-up, tag game.
This.
Cool. You do a lot of this stuff?
Yeah.
Awesome. How do you implement it? Do you put them on a line?
No, it's like a free play. Like sometimes we'll have the ball in our hand, and it'll be like skip, jump, like pass, just knocking around, keep away.
Awesome. That's great. So you just have them like they're skipping around and
Yeah,
they're
we'll skip. We rotate from skip, jumps, roll.
they'll roll on the
Yeah.
ground. Oh my God, that's awesome. Do you do that with all your teams?
Just the younger ones.
Yeah, well, up to what age group?
No.
Up to 9s?
Yeah.
And do you do pretty much the same thing each time?
I try to change it up. I don't want it to be repetitive.
Perfect. Okay, so that is the key. This shouldn't be repetitive. You should try to do you guys do, well, here, I shouldn't have just focused on him. Do you guys do any
He's
of
the
that?
best. We'll
He
just
is,
go with
that is the gold standard.
We just
I'm
copy
just
what you
gonna
do,
say
yeah.
Jags in a whole world
I'm
of
sorry,
trouble.
I like to read, guys.
Barry, keep it rolling. AD's got this for the rest of the time now.
Does anybody else do anything close to that? Do you guys
We
do?
do dynamic warm-ups, so.
So what's your dynamic warm-up kind of look like?
Pick with the 6-year-olds picking the apple. Things like that.
Backpedaling, shuffling, karaoke.
So you're getting a lot of those things?
Frankenstein.
You guys do some tag variations. So I put on there, that was the first thing on there, was tag variations. Do other people, do you guys do some
Yeah,
tag?
I coach with Kelsey with our 6-year-olds, and we do a dynamic just so they understand what the dynamic is moving forward for when they get older, and then we go right into a tag game that's quick, fast. They're
Without a ball?
Yeah, without a ball, and then if we incorporate a ball just to make it soccer related, but it's always like whether it's jersey tag where they're just throwing bibs at each other and running around. It's all
Perfect.
so,
How much time do you guys spend on that?
no more than 10, 15.
Oh, that's a lot.
Well, like with the both combined.
So you'll start playing tag with the ball too?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Okay, so they're dribbling around.
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to-
So now it's the same movements, but with the ball at their feet and
Okay, yeah,
getting
perfect.
touches.
Do you ever stop and like throw in any strength type movements or jumping type movements or twisting and turning or anything like that?
We do forward rolls and some gymnastics stuff.
You do?
My group. Funny.
Awesome.
One of the kids wasn't allowed to do a forward roll because a man told her she wasn't allowed to land on it. On her head.
Don't forward rolls wrong then.
You're not joking, you said?
I'm not joking, no.
Yeah.
So I had to have a conversation with the parents to say like, she has to be able to do forward rolls. But yeah, we do gymnastics, cartwheels, and
Yeah.
sometimes we'll do my kids when you don't want them to do handstands on the side of the wall over there. And
I was gonna
things
say
like
handstands, yeah, even if they're just they could just, just going into it and messing it up over and over again, it just gets their balance and
Yeah.
coordination, yeah.
Sometimes the tough part of that is like, last night, for example, I watched my kids in between and they were doing cartwheels on the side of the field, but it's not necessarily a bad thing at times. Like, I don't necessarily get upset about them doing that as long as it's not during the exercise and stuff like that. So, but I think it's an important part of it.
It's a huge part of it, yeah, that's great.
Taught our girls how to do a bear roll. They haven't done a bear roll, and now it's, rather than any form of stretching, they have to do a bear roll instead of anything else. So they just
You'll have to have.
we'll be putting cones down, and they'll be doing bear rolls all over the place. So.
Is that just like you're just rolling?
They lay down like a teddy bear, so their legs are out, and then you roll so they go around in like a circle.
Kind of a circle.
Yeah.
And do you do that pretty often?
They do it every time now. Not that we ask them to, but they just love doing it.
They're just doing it.
Yeah.
They're just doing it.
And then they go to cartwheels, and then it's all mayhem. So.
So do you guys pretty much, do you guys do this too? Is it mostly like a dynamic thing? Is it set by the club? Because I was told that there's nothing set. No?
So
It's just
where we're
fun.
going is we're looking to implement a curriculum beginning starting November, and that's part of the reason for this.
Oh,
Some of
okay.
these ideas as well, because it happens, maybe doesn't happen as much as we know it should happen, and it's not as consistent, you know, throughout the ages as well. So that's kind of where we're starting here tonight with the 77 coaches primarily, getting that sort of that foundation level feedback from you. So.
Hey, James, it would be awesome if we had like a youth technical director that could like put something together.
What's that?
If we had like a youth technical director that could put something together.
It's getting there. It's getting there, Nate.
It's in front of you. You have it got in your hands, Nate. Can you not read?
Pointing this direction.
I can't.
Do you guys get kickback from parents about any of this stuff? So I was told, like, I forget who it was, said, like, if we came in and did certain things with kids, like, we'd be doing it for the right reasons. But when you do it, it's like, what are you doing? Like, we're paying you to play soccer. Do you ever get any of that kickback at all?
I had the same problem with John, like, why is my kid doing a somersault? You know, like, that's the only issue I've had. I told him, like, well, you gotta learn how to get up and fall down.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times you get people like at the beginning of the year like, don't worry, like he's only doing soccer now, so like he's 7.
They tell you that?
Like they'll be so excited to tell you like, don't worry, they're only doing soccer.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about anything else other than soccer.
And you're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the main problem, is that you have to battle that, and so now you're trying to.
That's where it comes in, where like you have them do something else. Those are the ones who usually come up like, why are you guys playing like handball? Why are you guys doing tag? Why are you guys doing this?
So you're able to then kind of explain it to them.
Yeah.
So you don't get a ton of kickback. Oh, that's great. All right, so do you guys want to go out there and like maybe do some stuff? What's that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Was there any other questions like before we go out there for a few minutes on some things that you can try?
Yeah, teach them how to barrel.
What's multilateral approach?
Oh, so the multilateral approach is essentially doing lots of different activities. So multilateral would be kind of another word for having them participate in lots of activities. And it is kind of weird. Have you guys ever had a kid leave soccer for a year, go play another sport, like pretty competitive, and come back better? Like I have seen it happen. I know it sounds like that's impossible. There's no way. Like we're such awesome coaches. Like they can't possibly get better at soccer without us. But it does happen. And if they're kind of like what the research is showing, if they're doing something productive. Now, if they go and play Fortnite for the year, like that's not going to get them anything. But if a kid goes out and plays something else where they're getting good training and they're developing as an overall athlete, they can sometimes come back. So, do you have many of your younger kids that are able to play other sports? They do.
I tell them.
What's that?
I tell them to.
Yeah.
I encourage it,
Basketball and
especially
volleyball's
younger.
They still do. Okay. To dance and gymnastics.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Good. I think a lot of parents are driving this early sports specialization stuff, but it sounds like maybe there's like a swing kind of coming back.
I think usually what happens too is like most of us are really easygoing when it comes to like, oh, you got basketball practice, that's fine. Like try to figure out something around it.
Yeah.
Then you go talk to the basketball coach, and it's, you gotta be here 4 times a week. There's nothing else. Don't miss it ever.
Even when they're under 10 years old.
But also, I think some of the comes what you said earlier was like it's the volunteer coach. It's the
Usually when I tell my kids rule of thumb is please make it 1. You know, if you miss it the other because it's not that big a deal, it's always they come back to me surprised, like, really? The only thing I'm like, yeah, just make it the 1, fine.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that is good within our club as well, we have that many teams and age groups and different branches that if you miss a session, we can
You
probably
can make
do
it
it
up.
somewhere else.
Make
Not
it
like
up
you-
Monday,
not like you go, so.
Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's go outside.